Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have an exciting guest, Keith Kimball. He's going to talk to us about the exciting things he's been doing in the sphere of alternative parties. So welcome, Keith.
Hi. How are you?
Good, and I trust our audience is good as well. So let us get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Okay. Well, my name's Keith Kimball. I lived in New London for about 30 years, New London, Connecticut. I'm 51. I'm married. We have a house here, and I have an 8-year-old daughter. I've been interested in alternative party politics probably since the early 90s. I've always tended to prioritize my alternative party voting. I became interested in the Green Party around 2000, around the new millennium. And for most of that time, I've been working in the back end as a justice of the peace, certifying ballots and that kind of thing. But last year, the chair of my local Green Party asked me if I'd run for the Board of Education. Her name's Rhonda Steller. She was a former Board of Ed member in New London for the Green Party. And another one of my mentors, Myrna Martinez, also a former board member in New London. And I had worked with them. I collaborated with them on a nonprofit that was focused on public education policy for about 4 years. I was their treasurer and worked with them on outreaching and discussing, the best public policy practices for public education. So, I had a lot of experience about good and bad policies and what makes them better. Plus, my daughter's in the public schools here and will be. So, I'm interested as a parent, as an alternative party member, and as somebody who is very interested in public education. I ran. I did not win, but it was my first campaign with an alternative party, and I got about half the votes that I would need to get the election. So I'm not done. I'm going to keep trying to get our party's values into some kind of position of authority. So that's me.
Excellent. Good stuff. So since you ran for that office, what did you learn from running for office as a Green Party candidate for the Education Board? So
I'm really fortunate because in New London we have a really strong Green Party. As I said, two of my mentors, Rhonda Steller and Myrna Martinez, had been elected to the Board of Education in the past. Myrna was elected, I believe, 3 times. So I had them to rely on, and many of the former Green Party members who had run for office in New London as well. And I had a lot of help from Amber Wright, our campaign manager, who's also fallen in love with New London with her experience for this election, but very organized. But no, other than a voter, I didn't really have any experience. It's never anything that I meant to do. I always liked working as kind of like a volunteer in the background, kind of getting the business done without being a front man. But I'm comfortable speaking with people in public, and I was asked by people that I respect, so I give it a try.
So you learned public speaking skills in the race?
No. I've always had good public speaking skills. My dad was a teacher. My mother was a teacher. I grew up with good examples of great communicators. My profession is an accountant, so I frequently have to give people back news about their money, and that gives me a little bit of skill there. But yeah, no, this is just something that I've cultivated through my life skills in general, and just leveraged very well into politics.
Sure. So since you were running for the race, and you mentioned that some of your fellow
just dropped out there.
implement, and what green ideas did they implement in the election board? I'm sorry, the education board.
Right. I missed most of that question. You kind of dropped out on me.
Okay, because they won the election and you were seeking to win the election. What green ideas were you trying to implement or did implement on the education board?
Well, Myrna passed a policy that required the board to react to any circumstance that disproportionately affected minorities. So that was a good policy right there. I raised awareness about the poor culture of communication between the district administration and the families. There's a lot of frustration between New London families and talking, not necessarily with the teachers so much as the principal, the superintendent. I was able to raise a lot of issues there. And, you know, I built some relationships with, existing board members. I know a lot of existing board members, so I talked to them informally quite a bit. But, I was able to build relationships with the Democrats that did actually get seats. In fact, I have breakfast with one of them about once a month now. And several of them came up to me. They said they were interested in my ideas. I specifically, not wanting strategic resource officers in our schools, which we don't have currently, but other things like reprioritizing English as a second language in our school district, since like 25% of our students are English as a second language, but something like 3% of the budget is dedicated to English as a second language, and we dropped our immersion English, our immersion Spanish program, which had everybody learning their subjects in Spanish except English, and that would be populated with half English speaker, half Spanish speaker. So we have a 85% impoverished school district, and the state doesn't really kick in their fair share. So we're like in the bottom 25. For what we think, bottom 25% of Connecticut's 190 districts. But yet we have all these special needs students. We have, big ESL population. We have a big impoverished student population and a lot of special needs students. So we spend we have a lot of needs, and so I put very hard for holding the state accountable to give something.
So how big is New London?
New London has a population a little over 20,000. About half of that population is Latinx, and about like 20% is person of color, 25%, which is double the national average. It's not necessarily a poor city, but the public school population is mostly impoverished.
Okay.
So our public school students are largely low income. So.
Okay. So are the other board members, are they Republicans or Democrats, or what are they?
They're all Democrats, and then the city is predominantly Democrat, which is one of the reasons why Board of Education became an elected position, because the Republicans wanted another opportunity, to get in there. And it's worked out for the third party as well. Because otherwise, if Democrats largely get appointed, get elected to council and they make all the appointments, and there's just going to be Democrats on the school board. So it was another election to help balance that out. But unfortunately, this was a really, really bad election for anybody but the Democrats of this city. We had a referendum question about whether we should get rid of our police quota, and they put that on in an August election, just a few months before November. And this election, it was just town council and board of education, no mayor, no no state or federal election. So without that referendum, we had very low turnouts for both the referendum and...
So was there less turnout because of that?
Very low turnout because of that. And when there's an extremely low turnout, we have like 15,000 registered voters, but about 2,500 came out to vote. It was really bad. And whenever you have that low of a turnout, they're almost all hardcore base. You know.
So what tactics did you...
What's that?
What tactics did you use to reach out to the voters in the election?
So we made sure that we were at as many public events as possible. We participated. I participated in 2 debates. I did a lot of canvassing as well. We held public events as much as possible ourselves. So we had a open house for our political office. We did a fundraiser, which was a Halloween haunted house that did very well. But you know, largely word of mouth. You know, I wore a badge around everywhere, and we had our Lion Swan signs out everywhere. But mostly it was, you know, pounding pavement. You know, I hear, you know, that campaigns are largely 2 things, and that's, you know, funding and you know, canvassing. It's essentially it. But yeah, we tried to do that as much as possible. I think we were more visible.
How? I'm sorry?
No, and I was just going to say, like, to that end, we were more visible in public than either of the 2 parties. We started campaigning in, like, September, and, yeah, we were just more visible. And it takes about 1,200 votes to get elected, and I got about 600. So I'm really happy with that, considering it came out of nowhere and it was a bad election.
Yes, yes. So what were the debates like?
The debates were good. I did one for League of Women Voters. I did Step Up New London. I also Step Up New London's a nonprofit community organization for parents, and they're focused on equity more than anything else. A lot of minorities in that group. So I made it to their meetings as well. But they also held a debate, and unfortunately, there were no Republicans at either debate, which was surprising. So, you know, I would say 75% of you know, what we're looking for is aligns with Democrats. So they're a pretty boring debate, but as a result of not having any Republicans there. But I was able to, you know, separate myself, you know, more than once.
So are the Democrats more of the liberal progressive types in that area? Is that why there's so much alignment with what you and they have?
There's a large progressive sect in our Democrat Party here, and there's also quite a bit of moderates as well. But we don't. Unfortunately, even the most progressive in our local Democrat Party, they're not very cooperative. In the past, we've actually lined up better with Republicans here because we're committed to fiscal conservacy, and so are they. And you know, they want a place at the table. So we have actually been co-sponsored by Republicans more than once in the past. But in the Trump era, we can't find enough common ground anymore. So that's kind of fallen away.
Okay, interesting. So what are you doing right now in these days with the party?
Well, we're trying to get ready for the next election. I'm looking for openings on committees that I can contribute to. We're hoping to start like a Green Party podcast here. Try and focus on current events from, you know, an alternative party perspective, and just see if we could get, you know, our base is with us all the way, and that's great. But we really want to try to encourage and help people become more involved in politics and elections in New London, because our attendance is very, very poor. And I really feel that there's, most people in the country are not Democrat or Republican. They don't really identify as either. And I think there's just tremendous number of people out there that would love to support our policies and ideas. And we're, and I think there's a lot of them that don't know about us as well. Not just not participating, but even the ones that don't are familiar with us. They're not familiar with the fact that we don't take money from anybody but the voter itself. We don't take it from unions or nonprofits or corporations, just voters. So, if you don't support us, we don't run. And so that keeps us very, very accountable to the vote. But on top of that, what else? Oh, and we're just working on ways that we can communicate. Like, I'm keeping my web page up, and I'm going to try and get a newsletter going where I can explain what's going on with the Board of Education, what the board's deciding and why, and how it affects my neighbors. Because I feel like there's a responsibility for people who want to be in public office to stay engaged with their community after the elections.
Sure.
Government's complex, and they need a partner to help explain what's being done for them.
Sure. So what elections are coming up in 2022 for Connecticut?
2022 is mayoral and council and board of ed, I believe. I'm not sure about this. Well, I guess that would be midterm, so we'd still have a federal for Congress. So that should be a pretty big election.
And you're hoping to field candidates for those positions?
I'm hoping to run again in 2022. I'd love to find another partner to run for Board of Ed, so I'm not running alone. We already have two strong candidates that want to run for City Council, and maybe we can find somebody to run for mayor, which would be good.
So are the Board of Education terms 2 years, or how long are they?
Years, yes.
Okay, so you ran in 2020 was the last time you ran.
Right, correct.
Okay. So since that was during the heart of the pandemic, how did that influence your race?
We relied very heavily on social media. I think it's also, I'm masked a lot in public, and that does create a small barrier between you and the audience. They don't get as much nuances from your facial expressions. I think there's psychologically there's an automatic distance that takes place in your head mentally when you're dealing with people who are masked. So that just meant I had to talk louder. I had to be a little more expressive. Getting my point across, and that's fine. But yeah, I less crowds, less face-to-face interaction, a lot of Instagram reels and posts on Facebook. We did rely very heavily on social media to campaign.
Sure.
I think that's just it was obviously something that politicians were leveraging in the past, but with the challenges of pandemic, I think that's going to be an essential column of elections in the future, from local to national.
Certainly. So how can our audience, whether they live in New London, Connecticut, or elsewhere, support your New London Green Party?
Well, you could go to our website, and the most obvious way is donations, because, like I said, if we don't have the support of the people, then we can't operate. It's not like the Democrats, where if they're having a lot of low contributions, they could get something from Pfizer or the casino. So your donations are really appreciated, even small donations of $5 or $1. And also, we're always looking for volunteers as well. And even during elections, we need home bank people. We need canvassers a lot. So even if you're just a friend of the Green Party's, you can donate cash, and you can participate in a phone bank during a registration, during an election cycle, which is really good. And you can go to our website at nlgreens.org. That's NL as in New London, greens.org. And,
okay.
and you can find out all about us there.
So they don't have to live in your area to do the phone banks, right?
No, anybody with a phone can do a phone bank.
Okay, that's a good opportunity then for anybody that wants to help. So
Right.
maybe somebody can do it.
Talking to people about us, you learn about us as well, so which is good.
Sure. Keith, thank you kindly for coming on the podcast today. We appreciate you sharing your experience and your activities.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much.
All the best to you and the New London Green Party.
Thank you, and thank you for talking about alternative parties.
Certainly.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.